They kicked my daughter in a crowded hallway, while kids laughed and phones shot up like trophies. And for a second, the whole school held its breath, like even the walls knew a line had been crossed. The clip was 10 seconds cut with meme music, like cruelty was a joke and my child was the punchline. If it were you, what would you have done? I'm Alicia Bennett. I used to wear a badge, now I carry a law license, and a stubborn belief that truth deserves daylight. And my daughter Zuri had been at Crestwood High for exactly 2 weeks, quiet as a held breath, that careful new kid smile you wear when you're mapping exits. Crestwood is shiny on the surface. Banners about excellence, a football field that glows on Fridays, a library with a donor's name in stainless steel. But every school has a shadow, and shadows pool where power never gets checked. That morning, the shadow had a face, Trent Walker, star athlete son of the man with the name on the scoreboard. The kind of kid adults excuse because he wins games. He slid his hip out like a gate caught Zuri mid-step, and down she went. Books, cartwheeling a pencil, skittering under blue lockers, laughter flaring quick and mean. Zuri didn't cry. That's what rattled them. She stood, dusted her sleeve, and looked Trent dead in the eye, and the hallway did that eerie hush where you can hear locker doors click and kids decide who they're going to be, a person or a bystander. I learned it in 2 hits. First, a text from a number I didn't know. Is this Zuri with a link? Then the clip, 10 seconds that felt like a hammer. The kick, the smirk, a voice off camera. Welcome to Crestwood. My blood went hot and icy at the same time, you know what I mean. I grabbed my keys. No yelling, no shaking, just that cold focus you get when you've seen enough. By lunch, the clip had looped the school remixed, captioned, defended by Trent's fan club, like he was some folk hero. By the last bell, a second shove at the gate. Different angle, same smile. Enough! That's what I said when I stepped out of my SUV. Just one word that cut through the noise like a whistle. Heads turned, phones tilted. Trent rolled his shoulders like he was still on a field, tossed a grin he thought was charming and dangerous. Who are you? He said. This is my yard. Pattern interrupt. Listen up. Power hates daylight. I didn't shout. I raised my phone and hit record, steady hand, old cop habit. I never lost. With the other hand, I touched Zuri's arm, felt her jump, settle under my palm. Felt the muscle return to her shoulders, like a tide coming back in. Then I met that boy's eyes and said, calm as a ticket book, this is a school, which means student protection law applies, and what you did this morning is assault. He laughed theater voice like I'd walked into his skit without knowing my lines. You're exaggerating. We were just messing around. The hallway exhaled. Principal Collins arrived with that careful smile principals wear when donors might be watching. Reasonable, tired, ready to make this small. Let's not turn this into a scene, he said, teens tease. Tease is shared, I said, still filming. Not a boot to someone's hip, so your friends think you're a king. We're not going behind a door. We're staying right here where the light is. If it were you, would you pull your kid away and hope the noise dies down, or choose daylight the way you choose air? That's when another mother stepped forward, hands trembling, but jaw set. My daughter has messages from him, she said last year. He threatened her. She didn't hand the phone to me. She lifted it to the kids, to the hallway itself, and the room changed shape like a crowd remembering its spine. Collins tried to herd us toward his office. Herd a river, see how that goes. We ended up in a cramped conference room anyway, not because I agreed, but because the superintendent panicked at how many cameras fit in a pocket. The donor arrived before the coffee cooled. You know the type? Suit soft as a whisper tie, like a red underlined handshake he thinks is a gavel. Richard Walker, father of the boy who kicked my child, benefactor of the glow and glass. He didn't sit. He set a check on the table like a card in a game and said in a voice that pretends it's reasonable, "We all know kids go too far sometimes. Let's handle this quietly. A generous scholarship fund, a sincere apology, and that video can come down. Everybody wins." I angled my phone so the camera could see his eyes, my voice level. "Mr. Walker, you just tried to purchase the silence of a victim on school property. That's bribery and you're on camera." "Yeah, that happened." He didn't flinch, not at first. Men who live by checks believe in gravity the way sailors trust wind. But out in the open, the clip kept running, and by the time Collins got a call from the local paper, we're at the front gate. The ground had already shifted under Richard's shoes, and he just didn't feel it yet. "You pull your funding," I said, "and you prove this was never about kids, only about your name on a wall." He smiled like a man who still thought this was chess, and he had the queen, "My name built your field." "No," I said, "other people's silence did. Stick around because what happened next will blow your mind." We stepped into daylight, and the courtyard had turned into a makeshift press pit, mics, like spears, kids on tiptoe with phones held high, a low electric murmur that always runs before a storm. I told the truth into a lens clipped and plain like calling in a plate number at 3 a.m. My daughter was assaulted publicly on school grounds. I don't want fame. I want accountability. I felt Zuri's hand slide into mine, small and warm, and I felt the city lean toward us because nothing is more suspicious than a story told only behind doors. Do you think that's fair? To ask a kid to be brave in secret? Here's the twist. The gravity flipped. That night, Trent's closest friend, the one always in the center of those hallway shots, climbed out of his shadow and posted screenshots. Not rumors, not speculation receipts. Trent bragging about the kick, bragging about making certain kids know their place, bragging that my dad can erase anything. I won't repeat slurs to go viral, but understand the shape. Arrogance dressed up like armor, a child confusing a parent's money with moral insurance. If you've ever watched a crowd turn, you know that sound. Not a roar first, more like air leaving a balloon, then 100 small snaps as group chats ding and alliances crack. By morning, joke wasn't the story anymore. Pattern was. 2 days later, we had a public inquiry in the auditorium. Rows of students, parents in the aisles, press in the back, though they weren't supposed to be, and a screen big enough to make any lie look small. They played the hallway clip. I made myself watch it while my fingers dug half-moons into the folder on my lap, and Zuri watched too, chin up, because dignity is a muscle, and that room needed to see ours work. Then the board projected the messages, names redacted for kids not involved, and you could feel the center of the room move like people remembered words have meaning and patterns tell the truth. Richard tried one more move, money but dressed as concern. "I will fund full scholarships for any student who feels hurt," he said. "We shouldn't ruin a boy's life over one mistake." A sophomore with a voice like glass stood up and said, "Stop trying to buy our pain." The room clapped, not because they hated him, because they were tired of hating themselves for staying quiet. After that, the school had to hold a disciplinary hearing. If you've never sat through one, it's official but thin. Lots of procedure, not a lot of spine. But this one felt different. Too many eyes on it. Too many kids had tasted their own courage and found it wasn't poison. Trent tried to enter bored and wronged. That line kids practice in the mirror when they think anger looks like dignity. He said the script. It was a joke, she's exaggerating, she wants attention. I let him talk. I stood with my folder, didn't pound, didn't shout, just laid out a map from that hallway to those texts, to prior complaints that were handled internally. and then I stopped. Silence is a tool if you let it be. It makes people hear their own heartbeat and weigh it. And then Zuri stood. She could have let me carry it, but she stood, hands open, shoulders back. And when she spoke, it wasn't loud, it was honest, which carries further. "This isn't a prank," she said, "this is my life." I tried being quiet. Quiet didn't save me, it fed him. You could have heard a pencil drop 2 rows back. I put my hand flat on the table to still the shake and watched men who signed checks stare at their shoes because a girl found her voice. They suspended him for a year, banned him from sports, wrote it down with seals and signatures. Richard lost the careful smile and started yelling, red-faced finger jabbing. The kind of tantrum cameras love because it shows what money usually hides. He promised to pull funding, promised the school would crawl back. A microphone caught a parent whisper, "That isn't power, that's panic." The clip posted before the gavel could land. Within a week, 2 of Richard's companies lost major partners. Not because we asked. Because investors decided a man who swings at a board meeting microphone might swing at a deal. I didn't celebrate. I went home, reheated pasta, made sure my kid laughed once before bed. Justice isn't a montage. It's 1,000 small choices that repair a person. We didn't stop at punishment. The next week, under a banner that read, "Stand Up" in plain blue letters, we launched a program. An actual hotline, a student committee with teeth parent seats at the table, transparency rules written in language students could quote. Kids lined up to speak. Small stories, big hurts, things that had been turned into sensitivity memos and buried. A boy said he'd been locked in a storage room by Trent's crew last year and laughed at through the door until he wanted to disappear. The room didn't gasp, it leaned toward him. A girl said she'd been called names so often she started believing them, and that today she was done. Zuri, with a paper name tag that said student rep, took a breath and said, "I thought quiet would protect me, and it didn't." Speaking did. If you're wondering whether a single school can change, here's the messy answer. Not all at once, not everywhere, but yes, in rooms where kids see their words move policy. You can feel the temperature drop from fear to something like courage. Crestwood announced May 12th as Stand-Up Day every year. The same principal who first called it a prank walked to the mic and said, "I'm sorry for choosing quiet over truth." A few teachers cried into their sleeves. I did not blame them. And because the internet is loud, but occasionally amplifies what matters, Zuri got invited to speak at another school's assembly, then a statewide conference on education and safety. I sat second row, hands clenched in my lap, watched my child in a plain dress step to a lectern taller than she is, and tell a room full of adults how a hallway made her small, until a lens made the truth big. "A kick can knock you down," she said, "but it can't bury justice," and I heard the tiny hiccup where she swallowed and kept going anyway. You don't need to be fearless to tell the truth, just more tired of lying. Before you ask, yes, we got letters, hundreds. A kid from 3 towns over wrote, "I told my counselor today." A girl said, "We put your picture on our club flyer." In our own library, a boy with a voice like a cracked cup told Zuri he'd been thinking about ending his life last winter, but saw her clip and chose to wait one more day and tell somebody. We both cried in the stacks. You think views are the prize until a boy says you bought him time, then you rethink everything you measure. Do you think that's fair? That it took a viral clip to make a school listen? Let me tell you something maybe you don't expect from me. I don't wake up hating Trent. Anger visits, sure, and I don't invite it to stay for dinner, but I've also watched him shuffle into mandatory counseling through offensive cameras, a kid who learned the wrong lesson about what money is for. That doesn't erase what he did. It does complicate the story, like most real things are complicated. Does that soften you at all, or does it harden you, or both at once? Because most days I sit in that crooked place grieving the harm he caused and the absence that built him. There's one more small scene I carry like a pebble in my pocket for days that feel heavy. The night after the hearing, Zuri sat at her desk under a cheap lamp and wrote in a notebook pen scratching like a cricket in tall grass, and I stood in the doorway and just listened. She wrote, "Silence can kill, but when it breaks, it becomes thunder. And I thought the world will try to make you earn your dignity, baby, but you were born with it. All we did was move the furniture so you could walk through the room. So here's the part where I make this bigger than us because it is. Should schools that depend on donor money be allowed to manage justice behind closed doors? Or should public accountability be baked into every policy, even if it scares the people who sign the checks? Even if it costs a new field or a shiny scoreboard? Should a parent's power buy a child more mercy than the kid they hurt? Or is mercy earned by truth not purchased by a last name? If it were you, what would you have done when the principal called it a prank? When the donor offered a check? When your child asked if she had to go back tomorrow? I'm not going to promise you a neat bow. Some days the comments will cut. Some days the phone will buzz with thanks that make your knees go weak. Some days you'll want to crawl back into quiet and call it peace. Don't. Choose daylight. Raise your phone if you have to. Raise your hand if you can. Raise your voice when no one expects it. The hallway is watching. Our kids are watching. And they're learning who we really are when it's loud. If this hits something true in you, tell me where you're watching from and what your school did or didn't do when bullying hid in plain sight. Argue with me if you disagree. I can take it, or tell me the time you stood up and what it cost, because other people will read your words and borrow courage for their own hallway. Share this with one person who needs the reminder that silence isn't safety. And if you want more stories that push back against the easy lies and hold the line for the small hit, subscribe. Join us, stay loud, stay kind, and keep the lights on.